This is the Public Art Advisory Committee, Tuesday, April 25th at 4:30 p.m. This meeting is compliant with the Ralph M. Brown Act as amended by California Assembly Bill number 361, effective September 16th, 2021, providing for a public health emergency exception to the standard teleconference rules required by the Brown Act. The purpose of this is to provide a safe environment for the public, staff, and the committee while allowing for public participation. The public may address the committee using exclusively remote public comment options. The committee may take action on any listed items on the agenda. For public participation, they may join this meeting or they may email aibera@brisbaneca.org or text 415-407-2675. And this is a recorded meeting, which they can then watch again from our website. Okay, Danette, go ahead.
Okay, at this point time, we will have a roll call.
Councilmember Cunningham.
I am here.
Councilmember Davis.
Here.
Chair Davis.
Here.
Vice Chair Salmon.
Here.
Park and Rec Commissioner Greenlee.
Here.
Committee Member Grossman.
Here.
All right, all committee members are present. At this time, we'll move on to approval of the agenda. Do you have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
You have a second?
Second.
Okay, roll call vote. Councilmember Cunningham.
Aye.
Councilmember Davis.
Aye.
Chair Davis.
Aye.
Vice Chair Salmon.
Aye.
Park and Rec Commissioner Greenlee.
Aye.
Committee Member Grossman.
Aye.
All right, we'll move on to approval of the minutes of March 29th, 2022.
I move that we approve the minutes.
I second.
Who is second?
I second.
Lisa.
Okay. Roll call vote. Councilmember Cunningham.
Aye.
Councilmember Davis.
Aye.
Chair Davis.
Aye.
Vice Chair Salmon.
Aye.
Park and Rec Commissioner Greenlee.
Aye.
Committee Member Grossman.
Aye.
All right, great.
All right, item B is presentations and discussion items. Item B is further discuss RFP process and elements to include RFP for an art consultant to assist the city with a process to select and install art elements for the community park between Old County and San Francisco Avenue across from the Village Shopping Center. At this time, I will open it up to the committee members. And I believe committee member Grossman put this on. So maybe Beth, I'll open it to you to go first if you like.
Great, thank you. Thanks, Danette, for allowing me to present my concerns and suggestions. Angel sent this out before because I thought it might be easier for you to follow along if you'd like, but I'm gonna read it. I have some concerns about the RFP that we voted on at the last meeting. I was uncomfortable with it at the time, and and for the record, I regret my vote. After much thought, I've identified what might be helpful for the RFP and the contract. This park site is at the entrance to our town, and the art will be the first thing that people see when they come into town. As soon as we start to move forward with hiring a consultant, choosing artists, plans, and all of the people in the town will surely start to speak up. And as I've mentioned already to a couple of people, it's like people are like already, I've been hearing a lot of hubbub just that we're even, just even that we picked that spot. So I was uncomfortable at the time, and I couldn't put my finger on what the problem was because I felt like we weren't really ready to send out an RFP at this point. So I started thinking about what was it that was missing. And I suggest that we set it up, the RFP, with a series of phases that will provide opportunities for us as a committee to review the process at many stages and have various off-ramps, so to speak, at different stages if the consultant, the proposals of the artists are not a good match for the Brisbane community or the park space as it's used by the public. And I think we won't probably start to hear about it until we start to move into it. And once we are, as we found with the project with the mural, then we get it, if we don't have these stages kind of baked into the RFP where we hired the consultant and sort of renew that contract after we pass each stage or as we pass each stage, we're going to find ourselves in a similar situation to where we were with the mural at the skateboard park. So I just drafted a possible set of phases. I hope that all of you will look at these and maybe add your own or finesse them in some way. But for example, it could be phase one, a designation of the site and the selection of the consultant. I will also say that I still don't even think we're ready at this stage until we really get further on thinking about our master plan. But that would be a phase one for an RFP when we're ready. Phase two, consultant's recommendation for the process for selecting the artist. Like, for example, is it going to be based on the consultant's recommendation from the previous work of an artist? Is it going to be a competition? Are we going to have a situation where we're commission proposals? That would be something that we would want to really have the consultant specifically delineate for us. And then the key thing, which I have also really seen loud and clear in all the master plans that we've been considering thus far, has been, how is the public going to be involved? It is like, and every one of them has said from the very beginning, in fact, they even need to be involved in the development of this master plan. So the consultant's proposal for how the public will be involved, and then some, and also to get some input on the kind of budget that we're going to need and what that budget will entail. Like, if, like in the case of this park, the thing that I wasn't clear on is that we threw out this number of 200,000, if I remember correctly. And it's like, is that for the art element? Does that include the engineering and the moving around of picnic tables or whatever has to be moved? Does that include the landscaping? What does that budget entail? And the artist fee, the consultant fee, all those kinds of things. So I think we just need to get much more specific and get some advice on it as well. Then phase three would be a consultant proposes the RFP for the artist, and we would want to have a look at that. And then that consultant would manage that selection process. A phase four would be prior to commencing the construction and the installation, the consultant and the artist would report to our committee and possibly the city council or the planning department for permitting. This is all kinds of things that I'm just proposing. We would have to decide how we want that to go. Phase five would be the construction and installation. So like before we moved on to phase five and committed to the funds to do the construction installation, the consultant and the artist would have made it through all of those phases. At every point, we would have the right to terminate or change course. At each phase, we want the consultant to involve our commission and the public. We don't want the public to feel like they were steamrolled or have no say in how this public space is designed to be used. And if the consultant or artist turns out not to be a good match for our community, we don't want to have to fire a consultant or artist without cause. A series of phases would allow the consultant, artist, and our committee and the public know where we are at each stage of the overall process and provide a way for us to change course if need be. I hope that this addendum to the RFP will assist us to be successful as a committee, to be clear with our consultant, to know what we want, and ultimately create a space, an artistic space that our community will feel comfortable in. So that's what I wanted to present for discussion, for further discussion about the stage of the RFP.
Thank you, Beth. All right, so go ahead, Camille.
Thank you, Beth. I was under the impression that we had kind of, I mean, first of all, we're talking about two different things. What we're talking about right now is the consultant for that space, not the master plan. So let's be clear. But thank you for doing that, because I was under the impression that in terms of the budget, we just kind of threw that out, but we weren't even all the other phases were going to be part of what we wanted from the consultant. I thought that that was already decided upon when we had that discussion. Am I mistaken? Did we not? Isn't that what we talked about?
That was my understanding.
I mean, I think, and if it needs to be more clear, then we should make it more clear. But just so you know, Beth, I was under the understanding that we were going to look for a consultant, and we threw the budget out so that we would have a sense of what the consultant knew within a ballpark. But in terms of like the consultant's recommendation for the process, that was part of the RFP. That was the understanding that what they were going to do, that they were going to also get proposals and reach out to the community, that they were going to tell us how they were doing that. I thought that that was something that we had made sure was a part of it.
Yeah, and then we had to set a budget because having no budget was something that was expressed was not a good idea, because then somebody couldn't determine whether it would be worth their time to apply.
So I think, having said that, maybe the thing to do is to see exactly, read what the present RFP is, and then look at it in that regard, because I was pretty sure that we had talked about that. No, yes, I hear yes, but Beth, it's important because you didn't hear that, and that's what
I also didn't see it in the RFP. There's no phases. There's no opportunity for us to have an off ramp with this consultant. If we're saying we're putting out an RFP to hire a consultant on a $200,000 budget or proposed budget, then we don't have any. What if we get into it with this person and they recommend a bunch of artists that they don't really get Brisbane, they don't get what that space is used for, and we also start hearing all kinds of stuff from the public because we haven't involved them in the process. We don't have any way to stop a situation like what happened with the city hall, where we were all ready to go with the Graves beautiful city hall, and then all of a sudden someone stands up at a city council meeting and says, hey, what do we need that for? Let's make a park. So I want to bake in to the RFP these phases where the consultant is only hired as long at each step we have a chance to terminate or change course without having to have cause other than that we made it to that phase. And if we have to do a kill fee or whatever, we're only in it up to that place.
I'm sorry, I didn't read the RFP well enough, obviously. I didn't even see it. So that's me.
Well, and that was the other problem that I had. Stuart showed it on the screen, and I did read it before the meeting, but it was like, a week before the meeting preparing. And then he just kind of like rolled through it on the screen, and then we all voted on it. And I was like, wait a minute, I think we're really missing an opportunity especially because it's our first.
Well, so then maybe what we do, if everybody's up for it, is to go through the present RFP that we have and see how we'd like to edit and modify. Is that something that can happen?
I mean, it's up to the discretion of the committee and how you want to do this.
Karen?
I'm good with that idea, Camille. I think that's what we were planning on doing today anyway, was going through it and sort of nitpicking, if you will.
I don't think that was the plan.
I think the conversation for today is going to be talking about the master plan. What we could do is bring this back at your next meeting and so that way you can spend the entire time talking about how you would like this RFP to be done.
Okay, so I want to continue. If we are going to try and please every single person in town, we fail right now. It's never going to happen. Nobody is going to be 100% happy with anything we do, and that's just the nature of the beast. I do believe that this committee is a team of exceptionally talented people with a lot of different experience in a lot of different areas. There are a lot of people outside of this committee who would still like to influence what this committee does without being on the committee, and that's not our job. This is a public meeting. The public is invited to attend every single meeting along the way. I am not in any way, shape, or form okay with the idea of being scared of what people might say and saying, let's go spend $100,000. Oh, we don't like it, can it? We can't do that. You know, everybody here has got to be brave enough to say, this is a committee that's going to make decisions that some people are going to hate, period. Camille, you're the first one that comes up with that. It's like, I love this, you hate that. And that's just the way it is. We have our community involved if they wish to come. I'm not going to reach out to 2,000 voters every single week and say, don't forget to come to the Public Art Committee in case there's something we're doing you don't like. That's just not the way things are ever going to get done. If that's the path we're on right now, we will never accomplish anything. So I understand where you're coming from, Beth, and I understand you've probably had conversations with people who wish they were still decision makers on this committee and are not. That was their choice. And anybody who wants to have input can be here right now for every single thing we do and for every single thing we say. But believe me, I am in no mood at this point to agree to go down a road where we could spend 10, 15, 20, 30, $100,000 and then say, oops, John Blogs doesn't like that. If you want to invite people to come and put a bigger outreach out, we can put it out in the blast every Friday. Come to the Public Art Committee. This is a new committee that's starting stuff. And if you want to be involved, come or watch it after the meeting is over and make your comments. So that's what I want to say. And if we want to change some things, that's fabulous. But I'm certainly in no mood to waste any more taxpayer dollars.
And you're right. This is actually supposed to be for the next meeting.
Lisa?
But however, having said all that, Karen, I still think that Beth has points, and I do really like the phase idea because in the creation of art, my concern is that we get what we pay for. In other words, seeing the process a little more closely, not to micromanage, not to have people come out of the blue and say they hate it, but to actually get updates and just see how the process is going, just checking in. I think that would be really helpful. And I think as a decision-making process, it would record everything. In other words, what I don't like is something that happened like with the library, where something is commissioned, we all think we like it, then it comes out and it seems like it was kind of midstream changed, you know, without any public or without any committee input even. You know, it's not even the public, but it's just kind of as a committee to say, okay, here's what we expected, here's what we're getting. And just along the way say, hey, maybe this isn't what we expected. We expected something different. And if we have phases where that person comes and checks in, I don't see the harm with that. I don't
either. That word expectation is huge. Absolutely huge. Yeah. We need to manage our expectations. That's what we can micromanage, right? Not the artist, but here's what we expect.
Yeah. And sometimes we expect things that we don't get. And then we're like surprised. But if we don't have phases where we're checking in, I just think it's a good idea. I really do. I don't see it as being too onerous to just have a regular phased in kind of approval process where everybody's informed. It just seems to make sense.
That's not a problem. The problem is the financial thing getting way down the road and then pulling the plug. I have a big problem with.
Yeah, but I think that won't happen. I think there's less of a chance of that happening if all along the way we're well informed of what's going on. The less informed we are, the more surprises that happen and we go, oh, gee, that's not really what we expected. Then that's when things can go off the rails. So I just think this checking in doesn't cost us anything, but I think it gives us a schedule and it's not onerous. It just makes sense. So there you go.
Madison, were you going to say something?
I mean, I think we can dive into the details next meeting when that's more agendized, but I think that, you know, we've been able to have an out in the past, but, you know, at any point in time. We already exercised that in the past. So, you know, my concern is saying, oh, well, our contract's good with you up until this phase, and every time our contract gets renewed, well, what if they get a better project? What if they skip out on us? And we've just had somebody for 2-3 phases, and now they got a bigger, better project that they want to work on. And they said, oh, well, it's time to renew the contract, but actually I don't want to renew. And now we have to look for a new consultant on something that's midway through. So I think you have to think of all the possibilities of what could happen that, you know, we're trying to, we want to protect ourselves, right? That's the point. So how do we want to make sure that we protect ourselves from that situation also. You know, comments about the library perplex me a little bit because I'm not seeing how what was proposed is different than what we got. But I think that that's really like a conversation that doesn't matter. Quite frankly, at this point in time, we all have our opinions about that, but I was part of that process and I feel like we got what we asked for. So I think that, you know, if we want to get into the nitty gritty, that we should wait until that's part of the agenda and then we can go through it. But I feel like I'm seeing this pattern with our group that is a little bit alarming, that we get to a certain place on something, we vote, and then we just like keep bringing that same thing back. And we did that on the implementation guidelines also. Like we talked about it, we voted, we brought it to council. Council said, okay, we thumbs up your changes. And the very next meeting, it was like, oh wait, well, there's all these other things actually we want to change too. So my hope is that like, if we are going to sit down as a committee and everyone's looked at the documents and everyone's had time to think, and we're going to get to a place and we're going to vote, that we can move on. Because I want us to really like start getting the ball rolling on something. And so when we vote, to me, that tells me like, okay, the discussion's over, we're all in agreement. And so that's, if you're not comfortable at that time and you're not prepared to make a vote, then it needs to be continued and we need to have more time for review, but we can't be making votes on something and then just like continuously bringing them back because we're just going backwards.
Thank you. So I would like to say a few things. Yeah, I appreciate what you said, Beth. Those are all really good points and valid points and not really anything that I ever thought about. And so this is really out of my wheelhouse in terms of RFPs and how contracts are written. So I guess however they are written so that we do have protection is definitely a very valid point. And you brought up some really good ideas. And I agree with you, Madison. Like we've been on for a while. It's nice to get projects done. And I think it would be great after all the time we've been on that really hasn't been a whole lot of accomplishment. On the other hand, I'm reminded that this is a completely new committee. So it's like we're still establishing who we are and have the guidelines and the parameters. And I think that's still like where we're at, unfortunately. And we're stewards of this account that we have. And so we want to be really good stewards of how those funds are spent, because that's ultimately what we're doing. And to me, it's really important to be good stewards and to make the right decisions. So there's something that you brought up, Beth, that now you have me thinking is we selected a site, but, you know, and also looking at all these master plans of so many communities that I do see the pattern is there's a lot of community input. They do have a lot of meetings and what is it the community wants? Who is this community? What is their history? Where do they want to put the art? Where are the different categories? And so now I'm thinking, well, is it the park? We all think that's a great location. And I hate to like throw that out there, but does everybody like the park the way it is? Maybe they all like that site with the picnic tables right there. Maybe they want a piece of art at the city hall. I don't know. So that's just something that I am thinking about, that maybe we're missing that component right now, is where does the city want us to put the art? You know, we picked another site before and that didn't work out. That wasn't really, the community wasn't complaining, but I would hate to also go through the process of saying it's this site and we go through and people are like, what? We don't even want that site. So all this time and money was spent on that when we didn't really ask this town and the community, the stakeholders, where they wanted it to be. So now I feel like I'm a little conflicted, unfortunately. Lisa, you had your hand up, or was it who had their hand up? Oh, Camille, go ahead.
You know, I agree with all of that, but I also feel that, here's exactly what I feel. I agree with everything everyone's actually saying, but I think that first of all, we were given a list of places that we can possibly do artwork, number one. And I thought the intention of the Public Arts Committee was to somehow be able to put art in all those places. It wasn't like, well, since we, I can't remember, let's say it's 10, we're only going to pick one. No, we're going to do them all. So in terms of which place goes first, I kind of feel we have to bite the bullet. And then this is where it's happening. And if someone says, why there? Say, well, hopefully next time it'll be where you want it to be. Let us know. Because it's not like we have an open book of all the places, that, it can't be on the corner of Thomas and San Bruno. So, or whatever. So that part, I think it's important to have the public input. Absolutely. And I enjoy the phases. What I would like to suggest and recommend is that for the next meeting, which is supposed to be about this RFP, is if the staff, or I think it's Stuart, you could incorporate these things into that RFP in some fashion, so that when we come to that meeting in May, we can go through that RFP and really look at it and make sure that we're all happy with it.
Sure. I mean, normally that's incorporated in the scope of work section. So I can look at the scope of work section to make sure that those phases are included in it.
Yeah, whatever that is, so that, and if we could have it early enough, if possible, so that we could all review it, so that we're clear and have a better understanding, so that we're talking about it in a specific manner. I think that would help us a lot, because then it's in front of us. Yes, and I agree with everybody. We're not going to make everybody happy. There's no way. And to a certain extent, I thought our intention was to make sure we could put public art in every place there was. It wasn't like we were picking and choosing and saying, no, this place is not going to happen. So it may not happen for, Mary Sue, where she wanted it in the beginning, but it could happen for Mary Sue where she wants it next time.
Quick update on that too. Karen got funding for one of the walkways. Which one was it? Alvarado to...
It's I'm so excited about this. I cannot tell you. Where San Benito and Sierra Point come in, the walkway that goes down to Alvarado. It's a $245,000 grant to get the kids from stop kids or people, anybody walking San Benito from that corner down to the school, which is horrendously dangerous. There's nowhere for anybody to walk except down the middle of the street, basically. So we got, it took years, and offline, I'd be happy to tell you the story, but we were told we would never get this money. And I'm super excited that we got $245,000. So as an aside, part of what happens on that walkway, we should be involved with how that looks. $245,000, yes!
Now that there is money to work on, because we said we wanted to table those things until there was money.
Yeah, we have that. So we have that.
Money.
And that's, you know, basically a staircase with lighting, maybe some public art that is not coming out of our fund. It's a grant from BPAC, which is the Bicycle Pedestrian Access Committee of CCAG, and I'm on their legislative board and their legislative committee, but I was told 3 years in a row, we're not giving Brisbane any money. So we got it. Yeah.
So a quick question on that. Is there ability for the art committee to be involved in that at all?
I'm sure we can, of course. I'm just going to say yes.
Camille?
Well, I was just going to say it would be important for us to know what their timeline is and when we can be involved, whether it's as a representative or where information is going to come to us to see. Yes, we may not have to spend money, but it may be in that process. We say, oh, let's give X amount towards that process to do X, Y, and Z of a public art piece incorporated. And while it's being built, we could be doing, you know.
Yeah. Stuart, do you know that answer?
I think I would, let me talk to Clay to see what the process is that's going to be used for that. If it's brought back to council, then probably council would direct staff to work with the public art committee to, you know, have their thoughts added to the project. But if it's not being brought back to council, let me see what the best way to get to have public art committee be part of that.
You know, I remember Justin Yuen came and talked with us a little bit when they were we were doing it. So I think we just need to, since he is since left, we could just, you know, retouch base with Karen too to put it on for the complete, you know, because she runs the complete streets or whatever too, to also, you know, let us know what that timeline would be for that walkway. And
a huge thanks to Karen Kinzer and Justin for all the work they did to change the minds of the people who were convinced Brisbane didn't deserve this money.
Yay. Okay, so back to the item B. At this, oh, Beth, go ahead.
So I just want to say that congratulations, Karen, on that. Thank you. I actually use that walkway on a daily basis, and it is treacherous. So that brings me to my point about the park space that we're trying to plan for, is that, and this is also going to segue into thinking about the master plan, is that I actually feel like I have never used that space. I haven't even spent time there to like find out how that space in that part of the park is used. And I don't know how many of you have, but I feel like, you know, we're a small town. I'm not trying to please everyone, Karen. I think you missed my point on that. But I do feel like we do kind of need to have an idea of what we want even before we get into trying to enlist a consultant, because once we get into that field, then we are into the world of they want to move forward and their time is money and all of that. Where we are a small town, we can put something out to the people that, you know, whoever uses that park, or find out what people would envision there, you know, and just get some feedback before we go down this road of putting out a serious RFP. Because I personally have no idea.
But wouldn't that happen when we get the consultant? Then we get that idea. I mean, I guess my question to you is, are you saying, so that we can be clear, that you don't even know if that's the project place we should start? Because I thought we had all voted on that.
Yeah, we did. And I think it's fine if we do.
Okay.
And I agree with you, Camille. I hope that we'll have enough money to put public art wherever we want in all of the sites. But I feel like in reading the master plans that we have so far, it was so loud and clear on, you know, all the introductions and in pretty much every one of their phases about how much public input they got. And the question also I just want to ask is, given that we are a small town, that we have relationships, that we have a way of reaching a lot of people through, you know, the various blogs and everything else, the residents of Brisbane, that a lot of larger towns like Pasadena wouldn't have. Do we want at that point, before we hire a consultant, why don't we just find out? Why don't we haven't even gone down as a group to look at the space and wander around on it and see what might we envision? or maybe talk to some people who happen to be there or whatever. I just kind of feel like once we start in with a consultant, we're paying, you know, some $250, $350 an hour for somebody to like tell us that we need to do that. Whereas we could actually go ahead with it.
Karen?
I have used that space, and I do use that space. And I do see a lot of people using that space for all kinds of different things, barbecues, picnics, birthdays, blah, blah, blah. For me personally, and I would have thought everybody would have been down there and thought about it at this point. For me, that space is very meditative and quiet, but that's just how it affects me. So I'm sure if we all went down there individually and then brought an idea of, you know, how does that space affect you? How do you feel when you're in that space? And then have a collective conversation about it, because it is a very small space, and early in the morning, it is so delightful because the space is so small and it's surrounded by so many trees. There are so many birds and so many little critters that are just in that space that make it, even though there's cars coming in and out, that make it feel really quiet. So I think if we individually spent time at different times of day, even in that space, it's going to give us an idea of how we feel about it.
Thank you, Karen. Angel?
I'm only the recorder of things, but yeah, I mean, that's just kind of what my vision was, is to not hire an artist, but to hire the consultant, and that consultant would help us walk through this whole process and working with the community and learning about our community and giving us a selection of artists that they think may be a good fit. And then, yay, we like some of them as possibilities, or no, we don't like any of them, go back to the drawing board again until you get it right. Like, I just thought that was the whole purpose of maybe hiring the consultant, was to help guide us and teach us and what to, you know, like kind of what Karen had just said about, you know, everyone should go down there and experience it, and would they, you know, and then like kind of bring us together, kind of like a teacher in a way, you know, to kind of help bring us there. And I thought that was the purpose of having the consultant, is to guide us as a group. To get us where we need to be and to work with the community.
I think that would be part of the, you know, we want that, we can make that part of the RFP. And I think this conversation probably will be better served next time when we have the RFP in front of us. Because what I'm recognizing is that we're halfway through our meeting at this point. And, you know, I know that you probably want us to talk about the 2 RFPs or 2 master plans that were in front of you. But,
okay.
You know.
All right. Any other comments on this item on the agenda? Okay, then we will move on to item C, discuss the city public art master plan. We will be reviewing the city of Pasadena and then reviewing the city of Carlsbad. Or we can talk about both of them at the same time. How do you want to do that? Well, let's talk about city of Pasadena.
Maybe we should, oh, never mind. I was gonna say maybe we could talk about like things that we liked and things that we disliked. And then you could, I don't know, we could go one by one, never mind.
Okay, well, let's just go on with city of Pasadena, their art master plan. That's what we have on the agenda. So I will open that up for discussion. Anybody like to comment on that one?
For me, the one thing that I enjoyed about the Pasadena one was the fact that it had a, Pasadena kind of was able to capture the sense and the feel of Pasadena. And they have a lot of elements we don't have. Like they have older buildings that they've kind of refurbished or redesigned or added things to add to the element. So there's a really kind of exciting downtown in Pasadena, very exciting, which we don't have. But the process to get there, I enjoyed in the Pasadena one.
Thank you, Camille. Anybody else? Lisa?
Unmute, sorry. Yeah, I've spent a lot of time in Pasadena and went to art school there. Pasadena used to be a pretty lousy place. It used to be pretty seedy. And it really took it upon itself to get nicer. And there's a lot of art in the town, just from my general impression, that is very interactive and really engages the community. For instance, one area that's just kind of a general square in town, they have a big wall there that they project art onto, and they project movies sometimes, and they have movie nights just in this area. And I think it's a great use of space. I mean, it's just a space. It's not permanent art, but I think they've done a lot to make space for the art. And you discover a lot of art when you're walking around the downtown. And it was never that way before, never. For years and years, it was just kind of a seedy little, cheap, great place to be an art student. But anyways, that's just my comment.
I like the way that they were able to, in their discussions of the master plan, where they were able to bring forward those ideas and not only enlighten, but engage the public to want to be a part of that process. So if we're talking master plans, the way that the people who did this were able to have those people do that, that's I would put a check next to that, because they looked at the opportunities, and they not only looked at the opportunities, had the eyes for opportunities, but they had kind of a way of engaging and exciting the public about those opportunities.
Beth?
Yeah, I agree, Camille. I really felt that after I read it, I was like, sign me up. I want to move there. I mean, I really felt like they, at the very core, was all about engaging the public in every way. And I think that the key, engaging the public, interacting with the environment, and their history, and the arts institutions that already exist, they considered themselves part of an educational arm in a way, like, first of all, working with the educational institutions, but also being an arm of that educational institution to really to encourage art literacy. And I think one of the key things that I wanted to really point out that distinguishes them in their plan was that it had a big place for temporary art and performance as a way to engage the public. And I think that that is going to be critical. I don't know that we have that in our implementation guidelines. It's something that I was hoping for and brought up when I was early on this committee. And I hope that we will really reconsider that, because that is probably one of the best ways to really get people involved and interested and engaged and coming to things and hearing about what's going on with the arts, rather than just sort of like, even something as simple as the fire hydrants. I've been into all kinds of weird things with people about, well, how did this fire hydrant end up, painted like this on my block?
Well, what? I agree with you, but and this would be part of the people that we hire. I mean, I think what we're looking at master plans is to find out not only what in those communities sounds exciting, but who put those master plans together.
It was written in there. There was a Barbara Goldstein, and there was somebody else.
Right. So that when we put out what I'm saying is when we put out the RFP, so that when we get to the master plan, if the consultants we have say, this in our conversations and in our looking in the city and what is happening and looking around, we feel that there are places for performing and educational arts. I mean, this is my understanding of why we're looking at these things, to begin to look at possible consultants.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, and I think that would be a good thing. Probably Stuart can get access to of the master plans that we like. Who are the people that put them together? But I really did like that one a lot, and in particular because of the level of engagement with the public that there was from the get-go, and then bringing people along and keeping them involved through both temporary art and performance, and connection to educational institutions. Those key things.
Karen?
So reading these things is one thing for me. I'm just wondering, Stuart, is it possible that when we go through these, once we've identified, we really like this one because I like this too, could we get somebody from Carlsbad to speak to us? Somebody who's excited about how they got to where they're at. I learn a lot more when somebody who was involved in this process is talking from the heart about, how it feels to be part of this in that city right now. And I think that would be beneficial for us. I would love to have somebody, be on one of our meetings and say, hey, this is what we did. This is how we did it. This is how we got people excited. This was the benefit of this, and da, 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 da. I mean, temporary art relative to us. No, we don't have too many very exciting buildings in Brisbane, but we've got some very exciting big blank canvases that we could have chairs on the backside and project all kinds of stuff. So having some of the people who were involved in putting these things together would excite the heck out of me.
I will reach out. If you identify different cities, I'll be more happy to reach out to the cities to see who their staff people are for their public art.
Do you guys like that idea? I would be super excited to have that.
I think it would be great. I think it would behoove us as a committee to possibly pick maybe two or maybe three of the cities that we've read and say, these are the 3 city master plans that we like. Now we would love to hear from someone from those 3 places to inform us a little bit more. And then from that, and find out who their consultants were, how it was to work with their consultants. Exactly. And then we're ready to put to knowing. So my suggestion would be for us to consider 3.
Yeah, and I think the key questions would be like, how is this document functioning for you now after it's been created? Do you feel like there are things that you wish you would have changed, or sections you wish you would have, have you had to revise it, or are there any holes that you've identified that you wish that your implementation or that your master plan spelled out a little bit more clearly, or anything they're all created at different times. So I think some of the ones that are older, right, they're things that are technology and has the advances in technology or advances in where you live, or businesses that have come in, has that transformed or influenced the way that the document is now working? Would be interesting to ask.
Yeah, and I think we could have a meeting before we invite everybody so that we all have particular questions or areas that need to be spoken about. But I still think our task here is to pick 3 cities that we want to say, these are the ones that we would like Stuart to possibly connect with, to see if there's someone who would like to join us. I mean, I'm a producer. This is what we need to do. And then we can have all the diving we want. And I think we should have a meeting before to discuss what those diving questions will be.
Mm-hmm. I would just like to say on the City of Pasadena, first of all, it's a very manageable document. So many of them are just very overwhelming, which we'll talk about in a couple minutes. I can understand it. I like how they broke it into different policies, and they talk about the identity of Pasadena. They talked about the gateways. They broke it into the neighborhoods, different, how it's promoting walkable cities. So I really liked all that there is some graphics. I think the way it was laid out a little bit could be a little bit easier to read. I found that a little bit hard, but that's I mean, we're not down to that right now, but it was just an easy document to read. And yes, I'm curious how old this is. I couldn't really, I didn't know when it was, you know, put together. Oh, 2014, there it is. So it's not that old, but I guess the question is, how much has it changed, or have they amended it? That's a really valid point. So, you know, I think the thing is to have a document that a developer can look at it, a citizen can look at it, somebody on another committee can look at it and understand it. And I think that, and that talks about that community, celebrates that the uniqueness of that particular community. And so I did really like reading this one. So any other comments on Pasadena? Beth?
Yeah, I just want to underline what you referred to, in that I really did see in particular that one as a working document, and that it is really clear to me that it's not going to be something set in stone, and that we probably have to put it on our agenda that every, I don't know, 5, 7, 10 years, we have to decide that we have to kind of reassess and and I also, really love, I want to also say I love the idea of inviting whoever was, some people who are working with the documents that the ones that we pick, and, you know, and really also grill them on pitfalls. You know, if you could have done this now with what you know, what would you have done differently? You know, what went really, really, really well, and, you know, and also have them give us maybe some really specific stories about different projects that they've taken on. There's a article in the LA Times about a public art project that went really awry. If you like, I can send it to Stuart and he can send it out to all of you. It's pretty shocking, and there's a lot that can go on. So it's really nice to be able to learn as much as we can to avoid those kinds of pitfalls.
What not to do is better than what to do.
Exactly.
Thank you.
I had some comments.
Madison.
Too. I agree with comments about like the way that information was arranged. So I started when I was going through, I know I'm like a compare and contrast type of person, but when I was going through Carlsbad at first, I was like, wow, I love like how detailed this is and how much information this is. But then like I hit a point of, it started to lose me because of that. And I feel like if it's doing that to me, somebody who reads these types of documents all the time, then for our citizens and for our other, you know, committees who may look at this, we want it to be something that feels accessible and manageable and readable. And sometimes you don't need every stitch of information in there. I think sometimes when you do that, it becomes overwhelming and people check out. And so I liked that Pasadena's was really straightforward and it led with different policies, because I feel like policies, you can add in new policies as you go. And I think that like plans that are written with an element of flexibility are always going to serve you better, because you don't have to rework a whole plan. Plans written with more flexibility, you can just update more easily. And I really loved the, in Pasadena, the vision statement. Just like it's so easy to find, hey, this is at the core, you know, what we're about, what we're focused on. And then this is that guiding thing that's leading to everything else. And so, you know, I'd love for us to be able to come up with a vision statement for how we as a committee perceive art and what our plan for art is as a whole, something that we can keep coming back to and say, hey, is what we're doing, is that supporting this overall, you know, 2 or 3 sentence mission that we have. And so I like that that was really clear. I also liked that they talked about alignment with the general plan, because I think that that's always important, you know, coming from like a city council perspective, when we talk about the general plan. And, you know, there's certain things going on right now in Brisbane, and the ways that Brisbane is changing. And so to be able to just acknowledge that outright in the document, I think is really important. So I also liked the use, just in talking about structure, the use of bullet points. It's just, everything's really right there, easy to find, easy to manage. Do I think that it could have had other elements added? Yes. But I think that in the way that it stands, this is a rather accessible working document, which I appreciated.
Thank you. All right, are there any more comments on Pasadena?
Oh, just one other thing.
Yeah.
I also was kind of surprised at how specific they got about like certain corners and streets where things were designated for and all that. So I think in our case, we could maybe outline some of the potential places that we're thinking, but I was just surprised by that, which also sort of reinforced the idea of what a working document it was, if they were getting that specific about whatever was on their agenda in upcoming years or whatever.
Okay, good point. Okay, so one other thing I wanted to say is I also looked up Pasadena. I mean, the document, the size of that document, because I have the hard copy, so I can actually see how many, I mean, it visually, and it's a population of 141,000 population. And then that's to contrast to the next one, which is Carlsbad, which is like about 20 times the size, the document, and that population is 114,000. So I thought that was just a huge contrast. I mean, they're very similar size cities, but Pasadena is bigger and the other document is so much smaller, but I will save my comments on that till you go ahead and comment. So go ahead, Camille.
Well, I think any document that starts with how to read this document kind of,
I was like, oh no.
Kind of tells you there might be a lot of verbiage going on. I don't know about anybody else. I started skimming real fast and just flipping pages. So in terms of what I just thought it was a knower. There was nothing. I mean, how to read this document made me cringe. That's all I got to say.
Okay. And
why do we need this document? I think was the other part in the beginning intro.
All right. Anybody else? All right. Well, I broke it down. It's in 3 sections that I could see. There may be more. One was just their input summary of 2017. One was their public input summary, which is 3 times the size of just Pasadena's. And then they had the actual plan, master plan. And yes, it was just very overwhelming. I read a lot of it. You know, 2 point this and 2 point that. I don't know. I couldn't understand. I had a really hard time. And I don't know, as a developer, I mean, I had a hard time. I don't know how anybody can make sense of it. And then there were big pictures, and then some pictures were of other cities. And I guess there were examples, but I was like, oh, but that's in another city. So I spent a lot of time on it, but I can't tell anything specific that I came away with. There's a lot of graphs and lots of, I don't know. So that's a no for me. Anybody else? Karen?
I'm going to go right back to the KISS principle. And I think that is so important, is that the moment you start complicating things, you've lost everybody. You know, if the committee's lost, then you know the community's not going. And you know, being on the city council, I've now learned that there are a lot of people in the state of California who are just doing job security. They're not really producing anything that anybody really wants to see. It's kind of job security. It was a no. I was the same as you, Jeanette. I glazed over and went, I'm so bored, I don't want to continue. And that's what we do not want to do, is bore people. We want to engage them, please.
Well, I think not only that, but the cost must have been astronomical. Again, using the being good stewards of the money in this account. I think, it's got to cost a lot of money to hire a consultant to put that kind of document together. And lots of different hearings and everybody's answer and what they said over and over and over. And this summary part was, I started looking at that and I'm, what is this? Do we have to know all that? I don't know that we had to know all that. It was just, anyways. Any more comments on that? No, yes, Lisa?
Well, it just goes to show that, I don't know. I think Pasadena has a much more sophisticated idea of what art is about than Carlsbad. And I think they showed that, because it doesn't need that much explaining. Just needs organizing well and well designed.
I agree.
Okay. So my takeaway, go ahead, you have a comment?
Yeah, I wasn't at the meeting when you guys compared and contrast the first two sets. So what was your takeaways from like the first two cities that that was Reno, maybe?
Reno and Belmont.
Belmont and Reno.
I really did love Belmont when I looked at that one.
Yeah, that was a good one.
So when you did this exercise of those two, like, did the committee gravitate toward one over the other?
I think we talked both. I think we did. I think there are elements of back to a big city like Reno. I mean, they have like a museum, and so they have so many more components than we do. Big projects that they've done. I also identified with Belmont. That was the very first one I read. I found it to be really easy, and I think a lot of us comment on there were elements of Reno that we did talk about. I can't remember, Beth.
Well, the one thing that I seem to remember off the top of my head was that Reno had a bit of something that Brisbane has, is that it wasn't, it has not historically been a very attractive, upscale town. And they were trying to make their image a little better, and so with Brisbane, we were a dump town, I just kind of related a little bit to the Reno image deal. Whereas Belmont, I think, has a bit more cachet, but it's very peninsula. It was very peninsula, and it's very similar to us I could relate to their art, and I could relate to the size of their town. It was a nice small town. So there you go.
Jack, real quick. So just reading back on the minutes. So this is kind of what we did touch base on that. It's basically what Lisa, I know, because Lisa and Madison, you actually weren't at that meeting. So I'll have to take a revote on the approval of minutes, because you guys will be abstaining because you weren't there at the meeting. But we talked about, very similar history, and you guys really like that. Belmont's master plan was easy to read, and all those big parts. But you guys did touch on a part which wasn't brought up, is you guys had put an ask in to, and this kind of goes along the idea of what Karen and Camille said about maybe inviting maybe one of the cities, people, like how the process worked is doing an RFP for educational classes. And that was actually brought up at our last meeting, is kind of getting educated on, how to build out a master plan, and maybe incorporating that would have been the thoughts that Karen had brought up and Camille about having 2 or 3 of the cities, staff, who worked on it, how that would work. So that was another part that was also brought up.
Just to note, Pasadena's and Belmont's were done by the same company.
That's very interesting.
Very interesting indeed.
It's very interesting because those are the two I liked.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay, any more comments on Carlsbad?
No, but I guess we sort of, little light bulbs kind of went off all over the place here.
All right, so for our next two cities, what do we have left?
You have Seattle, San Diego, Salinas.
Ooh, that's good.
And then if you want to look at the paper.
Wait, we wanted to do a big one and a little one, which
Salinas is the smallest of the three.
Seattle and Salinas.
And what's the biggest? Is that San Diego?
I think Seattle and San Diego would argue about who's bigger, but yeah.
But since we only have three, can we just do three next time? Especially since Celine, no? Okay. Because that means the time after we only have one.
Why don't we switch one over?
Huh?
We could just add another one, maybe another.
Or maybe we
town.
do.
That'll be deliberations time.
Yeah, or maybe, yeah, see, or maybe
we got to read, but I think also it would be interesting to have another town that was in the under 10,000 range, because I don't think we have anything like that. And that is also a town that's nearby an urban area.
I mean, I think that makes sense. I think some of these cities that are so huge that have like museums and all this stuff, we're reading about all these things and taking up a lot of our time when we don't have those amenities.
True.
Did staff choose those? Because I mean, I feel like you guys probably did a pretty extensive like research into cities that even had this type of document. I feel like most cities probably don't.
Most cities do not. I mean, I can look again, but I will tell you, I probably went 15 to 20 pages down in Google search.
I think that we should just work with what we have and have that last city be coupled with discussion, and we just review that last city and then we talk about, okay, now we've seen them all, what stood out to us and where do we want to go from here, who do we want to talk to,
So Salinas and San Diego Salinas and Seattle are both about 60 to 70 pages, and San Diego's is about 116 pages.
Well, let's do the two smaller ones and leave a bigger one for the last.
Yeah. So that's Salinas and San Diego. I mean, Salinas and Seattle.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, so let me ask you this. What's on the agenda for our next time? Is it reviewing the RFP for the park?
Yes.
Do we think that, my question is, do we think that would take the whole time, or do we want to add just one city to that one? Or is that too much at a meeting?
You can do that in San Diego.
I'm sorry, what?
You can do that in San Diego and leave the two smaller ones for the last one, or you can do a small one like Salinas.
I mean, that's just an idea, unless you think it would take too much time.
I mean, we did it today.
Right. So does that make sense, Beth?
So a while ago, Stuart, I had proposed that we could maybe look into having an organization like Forecast Public Art, who has basically consultants or courses that work with arts commissions to think about their overall mission and putting together these master plans. And, you know, I'm just wondering if that's something that we might want to look into at this point in time, because I feel like we're kind of, I love that we're looking at all these ones, but it'd be really nice if we had some way to really like synthesize and look at the larger picture of what it is our role is, what our mission is, and how we would go about, you know, embarking on this project.
I could reach out to them, but we would not be able to pay them. Because if we were to pay them, I would need to go out and solicit other organizations that do similar types of stuff and do an RFP and bring that back to the committee to see who the committee would want to work with and have that be approved by the city council.
I'm sure there are other people that we could do it with. This is the only one I know, and but I'm sure they're going to want to get paid. But I also know they're a nonprofit, so it's not going to be exorbitant. But I'm sure there's other people that do this kind of thing. But I just sort of feel like eventually we're going to want to get a consultant to help us with this. But I also feel like there's a process in a way that we're missing in terms of going through as a committee.
Maybe what might be good is to, after you decide which 3 cities you want to talk with, we can talk to them about how they went out and developed their master plan.
Okay. Because the other thing too that I mentioned to you is that San Francisco works with Forecast Public Art as well. So, there's and that might be another thing to find out, like how are they working with them? And what is the role and how has it worked? And is there other people like them so that we could submit an RFP?
Right, but as I said, it might just make sense, like just to talk to the different cities, see how they went out about process, going out for, developing their RFP, what process they use.
True, and we can definitely start there. I think it's a great idea.
Yeah.
I mean, everything that we learn along this process from other people is, that many steps ahead, that many pitfalls we avoid. So I think that's terrific.
Okay, any other comments? All right, so for next meeting, we are going to look at the RFP again from last meeting that we talked about today, and we're going to do Salinas and Seattle. Is that correct?
We're going to look at the RFP with the implementation ideas that came from today's meeting. Am I not? Yes.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay.
So are we doing?
I thought we're doing RFP in San Diego, and then we're doing in Seattle in discussion.
Okay, so RFP in San Diego. Got it.
Okay. So that brings us real quick to on the Google Doodle poll I put out. I have May 9th and May 23rd. They are no longer Tuesdays. May 9th is a Monday and the 23rd is also a Monday.
I can actually now do both of those days.
Okay. And the only one, I think Tom was not able to make one, but everybody else was good. Oh, you were not good. Camille, you're not good on that one day, but.
Are we changing to Mondays because of Tom? Is that the idea, or why are we changing to Tuesday?
No, I put out the dates on the Doodle poll and that was what was available for people.
So are those the dates?
Well, so Camille can't make the next one, San Diego and the RFP discussion. And then the next time we can all get together minus Tom is the 23rd, if you want to wait that long. Otherwise, we just lose Camille on the 9th.
I'd like to have Camille there.
Okay, so maybe on the 9th, then we just do the Salinas Seattle, and on the 23rd, we do the RFP in San Diego. Does that make sense? Because I think the RFP is very important. I think the RFP is very important, and I would like to also have our new committee member as well.
Well, he's not going to be here for that.
He won't be available on the 23rd.
Oh.
I think it's hard. He doesn't have any of the background information. I think that's a hard discussion to jump in at this stage. So, yes, while we would love to have Tom, I think that's kind of, challenging for a first meeting for him anyway, because he's just like, that's a lot of catching up to do. So I think it would be fine if we just compared and contrast San Diego and Salinas next meeting, and the following meeting is RFP and the final one, which is San Diego.
On the 23rd. right?
Yes, we'll do Salinas, Seattle for May 9th, where we won't have Camille. And then we'll do the RFP in San Diego for May 23rd, where we will have everyone that's here on this page today.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah?
Yeah.
I think that makes sense. Does that make sense to everybody?
Yep.
Okay.
Okay. And then before I go to public comment, I just wanted to take a revote for the approval of minutes for March 29th. So Lisa and Camille, I think it was, no,
it was me. I'm
it was
abstaining.
you,
Abstaining.
was not
I need to
here. So you guys
abstain.
need to abstain so we can get a first and a second from somebody else.
I move that we approve the minutes.
Okay, second.
Great. Roll call: Cunningham,
Yes.
Madison, abstain, Chair Davis,
Yes.
Vice Chair Salmon,
Yes.
Park and Rec Commissioner Greenlee, abstain.
Abstain.
Thank you. Committee Member Grossman.
Yes.
Okay, great. Want to call for public comment, Ms. Danette?
Yep. So we'll move on to the next item on the agenda, which is public comment.
I have not received any public comment on text or email, and no one has joined our meeting.
Okay. Well, at this point, I move to adjourn the meeting. Do I have a motion?
Great.
We need one?
Thank you,
Yes?
everybody.
Okay.
If everybody leaves, the meeting's adjourned.
Okay, that's fine. All right, Angel,
Thank
can I
you.
get a copy of the agenda for me? Because it'll make it easier, because then I don't have to swap all these. So that'd be great.
Yeah, I'll do that.
And
Thank
real
you.
quick, are we gonna get those cities sent to us an email, or do we have them already? Where are they?
I've been sending links because they're really big,
Okay.
so I can
Yeah.
send them as links. Is that okay?
That's perfect. Just send.
Is that
send it
fine?
out.
Okay,
Yeah,
great.
that's perfect. Okay, thanks.
All right.
Bye.